Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we'll look a little more at writing task 1, and we'll talk about summarizing, grouping, and comparing the information. So when we summarize these graphs and charts or diagrams, sometimes there's too much information to really include a detailed description of all of the information that's included there. So we have to summarize it. We have to pick the things that are most important. Identify the most important features. Some examples, the earliest and the latest times that are on that graph, possibly the highest and lowest numbers that are expressed on the graph. Also, largest changes in numbers over time. So if it was here at the beginning and it's here at the end, we'll want to mention that change. Also trends that change direction. If something is heading upward, if it's increasing, and then it starts decreasing, we'll want to mention that change in direction. So we've got a table here, and we can see there's a number of different things here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 different categories listed. With only 20 minutes and 150 words, it will be difficult to talk about each of these things separately. So look for the most important things. So the biggest numbers we see here fall under the category of car. We're looking at the average distance in miles traveled per person per year by mode of travel. Okay, so this is how many miles an average person traveled in 1 year. And we can see there's a large increase here. Let's look for some of the low numbers. Oh, okay, so here taxi is only 13 and 42 in the 2 different years, 1985 and 2000. Let's also look for some changes. So we see walking, it decreased a little bit. Bicycle decreased a little. Car went up, kind of a lot. Local bus decreased. Okay, so let's continue looking at some changes. We see long distance bus actually increased. The train increased. Taxi did increase. And other, we're not sure exactly what that is, but we do see that it increased as well. Okay, so we have to pick some of the most important things, the largest numbers, the smallest numbers, possibly the biggest change. Looks like that might actually be our largest number as well. So our next strategy is grouping. We can write about 2 or more features together at the same time. Choose features that are similar in some way. They're trending in the same direction. They're increasing. Or they may be similar in number. It may be similar times in some cases. Or it may be similar in other ways. You may look at the age or the gender or the location are similar on these graphs. And finally, as we compare, I've listed some useful linking words here that can help you structure some sentences and add some variety. So we can use words like while. So while miles traveled by car are this much, miles traveled by bus were this much. Or whereas. Whereas the miles traveled in 1985 were this much, the number of miles traveled in 2000 were this much. So we can use these to connect those different ideas rather than continuing with a number of very similar sentences. The number went up here, the number increased here. We want to vary our vocabulary, but also try to vary your structure. So practice using some of these words when you get to your practice activities. Yeah, so let's think about how we could group these. One way is to look at groups that had a similar change. So we saw that walking decreased a little bit, bicycling decreased a little bit. We can write that in one sentence. Both walking and bicycling, the miles traveled by walking and by bicycle reduced slightly between 1985 and 2000. If we want to talk about the ones that increased the most, we can put those together too. We see that car increased a lot. We can see that the long distance bus, although the numbers are small, more than doubled. That's a fairly large increase. And we see increases with train as well. So we could possibly put all those together. The miles traveled by car, long distance bus, and train all increased significantly between 1985 and 2000. So practice putting them together in these groups. That's another way that you can talk about many more categories and more features of this table in the amount of time. Remember, it's only 20 minutes. And the number of words. It should be around 150 or maybe just slightly above that. Okay. Finally, I looked at the sample answer for the table that we just saw, and you can find it on our content area. And there's some good news there. You can interpret the graph or table incorrectly and still get a pretty good score. The person that made the sample answer there thought that it was about the number of people that traveled that way. If we look back, we see it's not the number of people, but it's actually about the distance. And so the information that the person gave was slightly mistaken, but they still received, I believe they received a 6, which for most undergraduate universities is enough for admission. And the reason it got a 6, if you organize well, if you use connectors, if you show a variety of vocabulary and sentence structure, they'll overlook some of those small mistakes. Remember, the main thing that they're trying to check is your English ability. And so if your understanding of that graph was slightly mistaken, you can still produce a fairly good summary. And this one, look at it. It's interesting. It's good enough for a 6, even though there was a mistake there. Try to get it right, but keep that in the back of your mind. This is actually the more important part. Organize, connectors, vocabulary, and a variety of sentence structures. Okay, so take a look at the practice activities in our content area. Make sure you look at the sample essay that goes with this table here. Look at it and see if you can understand the mistake that was made. They talk about it a little bit in the comments there as well. All right, so now it's your turn. Go back to that content section, try the exercises, and good luck. You can do it.